Welcome to the Smart Business Show, episode 90. Today we have our second guest ever. And today we're going to talk to Philip Morgan. He runs a company, Philip Morgan Consulting, but most importantly, he has positioningcrashcourse.com. And what he does is teach all about how to position your business, how to stop being a generalist, and how to just really run a better business and make more money because you are specialized. Without further ado, we will hear from Philip. This is again about an 8 to 10 minute interview. So welcome, Philip. Why don't we start with just a little bit of background on you?
Sounds good, Curtis. My name is Philip Morgan. I live in this little town in California called Sebastopol. And for work, I help custom software developers narrow down their focus and move from being a generalist, usually an underpaid, undervalued generalist, to being a specialist who can generally command more money for their time and more respect from their clients.
You kind of answered my second question, which is why is a niche important? And I noticed you even have a niche, right? You said software developers.
I do. I have what you would technically describe as a combination of a vertical and a horizontal position. I'm focused both on a target market, software developers, and a particular problem that I solve for them. The broader problem is lead generation. The narrow problem is positioning. Mm-hmm. So I think you asked about positioning, right?
Why is a niche important for your people? Because you said you do that, narrow their focus down, right?
I found it moves people from a reactive place in their business to a more proactive place. And the reason why is simple. Most freelancers, certainly myself when I started out, they have actually no idea who they're trying to reach, or who they're trying to reach is everybody, which is just as bad. So when you start focusing on a niche, on a particular type of client or a particular problem you solve for them, everything changes because you start instead of asking like, how do I get more business? You start asking, how do I get more of that kind of client? And I mean, it sounds simple and trivial, but that's the one thing that literally changes everything with marketing. So your marketing becomes more effective. Instead of like, well, I should write a blog post, you start saying, well, I should ask this question I've been getting over and over from this particular type of client I'm focused on. And your marketing starts to resonate better, becomes more effective. And I mean, not least of which, you can charge more for your time. Specialists can almost always charge a higher rate than a generalist because their expertise is perceived as more valuable because it's focused on a particular type of problem, or maybe just a particular type of market's needs. And you become conversant in what that market needs. You start to start to anticipate their needs before they even know that they exist. And that makes your services more valuable, that's the best basis for charging higher rates. It's just that you create more value for your clients. There's a bunch of secondary benefits, but I know we're trying to keep this short. So those are the primary benefits.
You kind of answered the next question, which was what is positioning? Why is it important? So
I don't think I talked about what positioning is in a theoretical sense. Have you got another couple hours? I'm kidding. It's pretty simple. The classic definition is owning a word in the mind. So you can read a book on positioning by a guy named Al Ries that was written, I think, in the early 80s, late 70s. And he talks about positioning as owning a word in the mind. It's sort of simplifying how people understand your business or your product to the point where they just think of you as, in cars, safer. The safest car for a long time was perceived as Volvo. Like they had these great crash test ratings, and they sort of own that word of safety in the mind of the car buying public. For freelancers, it's really more of a process. Like freelancers, surprisingly, don't have $1 million ad budget or a multi-million-dollar ad budget, so they can't kind of hammer over and over again that I'm the best freelancer for this. So they have to think of this more as a process. And it's for freelancers, positioning is narrowing down your marketing focus first, and then letting your business focus over time start to also become more narrow. So you narrow down your market focus. You try to go after one type of client, one type of problem maybe, and you just have that singular focus. You do that for 6 to 18 months, and then your business changes for the better because you develop expertise and you start to become better at helping that type of client specifically achieve their business goals, that makes you more valuable, makes you less easily replaced with some freelancer from Upwork.com, and then everything, as in my experience, changes as a result.
What are the biggest mistakes people make with their positioning?
This is maybe the biggest mistake freelancers make, but it also applies to positioning. When a freelancer thinks about their value in terms of their skills and their interests, and that's their primary consideration instead of thinking about it from their client's perspective. So let's think about WordPress, and you're just like, so what's something that WordPress developers are passionate about? Let me turn the tables and ask you a question.
What do they debate about endlessly? The GPL
Yeah.
license.
Okay. Great. How does that affect their clients' business goals?
They don't care at all, their clients.
That's a great example. So, from a positioning perspective, a WordPress developer might say something like, I'm a WordPress developer who focuses on producing plugins that comply with the GPL license, right? And in their mind, that's a real big advantage. Like that's that's some inside track they have. But in their client's mind, who cares? Like their clients they wouldn't even know why to care. They don't even have the context for understanding why that matters.
Yep.
So that's a positioning mistake, is thinking about it from the wrong perspective, like not understanding how your clients see the world deeply enough, or how they prioritize things. And I guess the secondary mistake is just biting off more than you can chew. So if you're a complete generalist right now, you're used to working with dozens of different kinds of clients, and you just do, say, generalist WordPress work for them. It's appealing when you get this idea that, I can narrow down my focus and that's going to benefit me. And some people want to go all the way and just really hyper specialize. And that's biting off more than you can chew. It's better, I think, to make your first step. And this is, I guess, the one sort of a very practical aspect of what I'm talking about, is just pick a target market. Just pick a type of client to work with. Just cosmetic dentists, just membership site businesses, just e-commerce, and start with that level of focus, and then let the rest happen over time.
Yeah. Just keep following the 80-20 principle, right?
There you go. Yeah.
I really liked this and it made money. I really didn't like this and didn't make money. I will do less of that then.
And that's not easy to do. I mean, I don't know how it was the first time you said no to a client, but for most people, it's terrifying. Absolutely. When they're used to saying yes all the time.
Mm-hmm. I would
That's another way to
lying if I said occasionally. It's still, I want to say, I know I should say no, and I'm like, and every time, probably once a year, I still say yes when I should say no, and it never goes well. I'm always like 3 months later going, this is so dumb. Why did I ever say yes? Because it's not the money I wanted. It's not the client I'm enjoying, and I'm working on it 5 times as long as I should.
And you can see yourself doing it. You almost like kind of float outside your body, and you see yourself saying yes when you should say no. That first time of saying, I'm going to pass on this project because I'm really focused on this kind of project, is terrifying. But, if you're willing to get over that emotional difficulty, the world is your oyster, I think.
So if there's one thing you could make freelancers, business owners change to position themselves better, what would it be?
I'd say to pick a target market. So I'm assuming someone is a generalist. They'll just take any kind of WordPress work or any kind of software development work or whatever, right? Like they've got their skill set and they'll apply it for any kind of client. I would say pick a target market and start to try to attract that kind of client, or go out in an outbound fashion and find that kind of client. And if you can't pick one, this is hopefully going to make people laugh. Go to naics.org, NAICS, not .org.com, NAICS.com. You'll find a list of industries. These are market verticals. It'll be things like manufacturing, retail, construction, like that kind of thing. Click down into 1 or 2 levels and pick one at random and make that your focus, because that I promise you will be better than having no focus at all. Mm-hmm. Obviously, if you have greater access to one of these industries, that's where you should start. But almost any, and I know a lot of people won't believe this, but almost any choice about focus will be better than no choice at all.
And that just going back to you can focus your marketing, you can speak the language they speak, and all those other things, right?
That's where it will start. Over time, it'll transform your business and make it more efficient and profitable. But at first, it's just a marketing change.
Mm-hmm. Is there
You
anything
have
else?
to you have to mean it, when you do these things.
Yeah.
But at first, it's a fairly low risk change.
Is there anything else you think we should know to position ourselves better?
Know that it's scary.
Mm.
It's actually terrifying. I mean, we hinted at that. The idea of saying no, that's not the only part of it that's scary. You feel like if you have 10 clients over the course of a year and you narrow down your focus to just one of those types of clients, you feel like the next year of your business is going to have 20% of or 10% of the revenue the last year did.
Yep.
And that's not how it works.
Nope.
So just know that the kind of math your lizard brain encourages you to do is not actually accurate. Know that when you choose that focus, that little tiny hole goes very, very deep, and it's very interesting inside. Mm-hmm. So I guess that's the other thing I would add about positioning.
I'd say that's true every time you refine, right? Even as I've refined over years and continue to not be a generalist, every time I've tightened it down more and more, I'm like, there's just a little bit of my heart goes racing a little bit of the fear factor comes in.
Right, but how has it been for you? Has it been has it been repaid with interesting?
Yeah, the first year I really did it, I more than doubled my income, and as I've done it more and more, I have stayed about the same income and worked less and less on client projects, and done more and more of whatever I want, like go running later today, or like say, hey, there's snow in the mountains, I'm going to go visit that snow.
I think that's a good note to end on. It's that kind of thing is enabled by having the courage to start to narrow down and start to say no to the things you don't want to do, so you can say yes to the things you do.
Mm-hmm. So where can people find out more about what you do, Philip?
They can take a free email course on positioning. If this stuff is interesting, they can go to positioningcrashcourse.com. If they went to my website, they would find a very boring website that just encourages them to take the same position crash course. I really relate to my, people who are interested in this stuff almost entirely through email. So start there, and it'll already be interesting from day one. And I think it'll get even more interesting, and you can learn a lot about positioning by doing that.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us today, Philip.
My pleasure. Glad to be here, Curtis.